Okay, so we're going to take a look at our computer's file system from the terminal or command prompt. If you've never done this before, you're going to want to learn something new right now. It's going to be essential to our understanding of how to use the SQL client that we're going to work with SQLite. And we'll explain that as we go. But first, we want to understand our computer's file system and how we can navigate it using the terminal or command prompt. Now, the instructions will be slightly different on Windows, and I'll show those steps simultaneously as I go. But first, I'm going to show you the Mac. We begin by going to the magnifying glass, or what they call spotlight search, and type terminal. Terminal app is an application that presents us with a window that looks like this. Now, your window is likely on the Mac is likely to be black on white text. You can change that pretty easily using the inspector, but mine will remain green on black for right now. And you're seeing this blinking cursor, which is indicating that the system wants us to give it a command. This is a reason we call it the command line. On Windows, the way to get there is by going to the search box, and you have to find your search box and type CMD for command, and you'll see command prompt. Now actually, we actually want, I take this back actually, what we want is the Anaconda prompt. That's what we're going to need here. So I'm going to type Anaconda, and with newer versions of Anaconda, I see I'm given a choice between PowerShell prompt and regular Anaconda prompt. I'm going to choose the Anaconda prompt, although it shouldn't really make a difference. And when I do, I see a similar window to the one we saw on the Mac. This is the command prompt for Anaconda, and it also has a blinking cursor, and this again means that your computer system is asking you for your next command. Now, I need to show you what it means to be working from the command line. If you're familiar with this, then this will be review, and you may not even need to look at this, but we are going to work with this week's files, so you may want to watch this video anyway. The first thing to understand is that when we're working from the command line, we have a current location, and we see that on the Mac by using the command pwd. You can see that pwd shows us /users/David, and what this is the location where we're currently sitting on the terminal. The main concept to understand is that the terminal can only be looking at one directory at a time. You can tell it to look at other directories, but it actually has a concept called the present working directory. That's the current location where we're sitting at the moment in our file system. We're going to learn how to move around, but we need to first embrace this concept. On Windows, you can see that the present working directory is actually shown here. You can type CD and hit enter, and you'll see that reflected back. It's showing us that our location is /users David. Now, you may be aware that // means the root of your file system. You may not, actually. It really depends on what you've done so far. But when we talk about the root of the file system, I think you know as well as I do that our file system is made up of folders and files, and that the folders can be inside one another, and thus we have this kind of nested relationship between files and folders on our file system, whether it's Mac or Windows. I'm going to go back to the command prompt window, and so what this is illustrating is that we're in the David directory. The David directory is in the users directory, and the users directory is at the root. Now, of course, your home directory is not going to be called David. Mine is, because my name's David. Yours will be called something else. It might be your name, it might be your full name or last name. It might be some other name that you decided to name it when you set up the operating system. Or if you're on a work computer, it might be some more generic name like work computer or your ID or something like that. Whatever it is, your home directory, where we can expect to be when we first start the prompt, is your base location on the file system. The files, of course, go way beyond just our home directory, but the home directory is the root of our files. And you can see that between Windows and the Mac, the root location is actually quite similar. This slash on the Mac means root, and this C colon backslash on Windows means the root. And you can see that both of them are users David, and that just happens to be a similarity between the two operating systems. Now what we need to do next is understand what's in the current directory. We're going to do that with ls on the Mac, ls, and hit enter. Or on the PC, we're going to use dir. It shows us what's currently in the directory. Now, if you compare what you're seeing here to what's in your file system, I'm going to go back to File Explorer, and I'm going to find my home directory. Now, Windows tries to make things easier for us, but for our purposes, it makes it a little harder. You may or may not see your home directory here in the quick access. And it's still not a mystery to me, but I haven't worked out the specific details on how you can show your home directory. But I did find that I had a home directory inside the desktop. So I guess that's because I have a shortcut to it. So you can see here's my home directory. It's got a little picture of me, although I don't have brown hair. And the name, and that's indicating the home directory. If you're having trouble finding it, you may need to tell Explorer to show it. One thing that I've found is that you can right-click inside, not on any folder, but down below, and right-click there, and you can choose Show All Folders, and that will at least allow you to see drop-downs of your folders within folders, etc. So this is a little bit strange because it says that David is inside desktop, but it really isn't. Desktop is inside David. I'm not going to go into this because Windows makes it actually more difficult for us to understand what's going on. But if you can locate your David directory, and you don't have to do this for our purposes, I did want to show you an illustration though. If you compare the listing from the home directory in the Explorer, that is my David directory is my home directory. If you compare that to the to your home directory listing that we got from dir, you'll see that it contains the same files, astropy, config, etc. This is basically two different ways to look at our file system. On the Mac, it's the same idea. When I do an ls in my home directory, I can see that I have a number of folders and files in there. And if I go to my Finder and click on my home directory, you'll see those same folders and files. Again, it isn't necessary that you be able to pull up your home directory using the graphical user interface here, but it is useful to understand that there's a relationship between what we see in the home directory here and what we see in the home directory here, and the relationship is they are the same listing. I don't know if you're noticing that lowercase names are being filed alphabetically with uppercase names, but in this file system, the uppercase names come first, and there's the Anaconda 3 directory. It's the same listing, but we're just seeing it in two different ways. Now the next thing we need to do is work with our current zip file and cd into the correct directory, because we need to be able to access our current files from the command line. So you can do this on Windows or Mac. I'm going to go to Source Data, and I see my Session 2 files. Actually, it won't look like that for you. Let me use the web-based version. Here you can see Session 2 files, and I'm going to download that folder. You may have done this already. It's totally fine either way. And now we're going to need to unzip it. Now I'm going to do that using Chrome and the Mac. I need to go into the folder where this file is located. This is in my downloads directory. For most of you, it will be your downloads directory. If you're using Firefox, you may need to click on an arrow up here and say show in Finder or show in Explorer to see this folder. But on the Mac, I'm just going to double click the folder, the zip file, and it unzips to a folder. Now on the PC, it's a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and download the folder. I may have done it already actually, but let's try it again. I'm going to download this Session 2 zip. Yeah, it looks like I already did it. Again, on Chrome, I'm able to choose options and say show in folder, and that's what you want to do here. Now I've got two of these, so I'm going to get rid of the one that I just downloaded, so I can just work with this one. Now we need to unzip. Now it's going to be a little different. If you double click this, unfortunately it doesn't actually open it up. It actually shows us a view of what's inside, and that's the problem. What we really want to do is click extract, or on older versions you may see extract all, and it will go ahead and, yeah, you click extract all, and it'll ask you if you want to extract, and you say yes. And now the folder will appear in the correct thing. Now the thing is, we clicked into the original zip, so this is again how Windows makes it slightly more difficult for us to see it and understand it, because it adds a little layer to try to make things easy. But if we go into downloads again, we'll see that that folder has been created, and this is where you want to be at this point. Whether you're on the Mac or Windows, you want to be able to see that that folder has been created and that it is available for you now. Now, we're in the downloads directory, and again, it's hard to see exactly where we are, but if you look under your home directory, you'll see that there's a downloads directory there, and that's the true location of this folder. It's actually under David Downloads. Again, Windows makes it difficult. They put it under quick access, which makes you think that it's maybe under this PC, or downloads, this PC downloads. It really isn't. It's in the home directory. So we're going to go in there. And on the Mac, it's the same idea, but it's just easier as usual. Click on the downloads directory on the left, and you'll see it here. But you can also go to the home directory, go to the downloads directory. And by the way, if on the Mac you're seeing big icons, which you normally will, you should go to the top here and click the 5 lines to show the listing this way. And under the home directory, I'm able to go to the downloads directory, or I can even expand it here and see that it's here. It's inside my downloads directory, which is inside my home directory. Now we need to understand this because we need to know how to navigate from our command line to the session 2 files directory. So I'm going to start from my home directory, and I can see when I did a listing here, and again it was ls to show a listing. If I look, I can see that there's a downloads directory in there. So I'm going to use the next command, and you can do this on Windows as well. We'll go to Windows and go to the command prompt so that you can see it. And we're in the home directory, and you can see that the downloads directory is in the home directory. I'm now going to say cd space downloads, and then do a dir. Now you can see now that we've moved into the downloads directory, because again the prompt shows us exactly where we are. And on the Mac, I'm going to use the same command, cd downloads, and I'm going to do pwd to show where I am. I'm in the home directory, and inside there is the downloads directory. So I'm in the same location on both Windows and Mac. And if I do an ls, I can see that the session 2 files is there. That folder is there. And that's also the case in my Windows. I had unzipped the folder, so now it says session 2 files, and I'm seeing it in my file listing when I do dir. Now I want to cd into that folder, so I'm going to do the same thing. Session 02 files, and I cd into that. And now I can do a dir and see what I've got in there. And now you can see the files that are involved in this week's folder, this week's zip file and folder. And that includes session 2db, which is the file that we're really interested in. From the Mac, we're going to do the same thing, cd session 02 files. And if I do an ls, again, you need to keep these commands straight because they're different between Windows and the Mac. On the Mac, file listing is ls. On Windows, file listing is dir. And you can see the session 2db folder right there. Now, if you got at all mixed up or confused and you need to start over, you can, of course, rewind this video and start again. I can also tell you that if you just issue the cd command on the Mac, it'll take you back to your home directory, and you can see I'm using pwd to show that. And I can say cd downloads, and cd session 2 files and do an ls, and I see I'm back where I was. The same thing is true on the PC. I can say cd. I can't say cd, unfortunately, because that'll just show me where I am. But if I say cd home path, that'll take me home, and then I can say cd downloads and cd session 02 files, and that'll take me, and I can do a dir to see the files in that file system. So in order to understand where you are and what you're doing, you do need to follow these instructions very carefully, but I've demonstrated both of them, and as long as you have the patience and you're willing to go step by step, you should hopefully have no problems. The only problem on Windows that I see is that your system may have been set up slightly differently, and you may not see, for example, a search box in the lower left. You can't see mine right now because for whatever reason my dock is now showing all the time. I really want to hide that dock, but I can't seem to do it. That's a little, oh, there we go. There's the, okay. Yeah, here on Windows you can see I've got a magnifying glass for search. You may have a search box there, or you may not have anything. I've found that later versions of Windows, they keep changing the way things work, and it may be that you need to right-click your dock here and choose Show Search, under Search, Show Search icon or Show Search box. And that'll show your search, and then you can follow those other steps. So if you got hung up there, you can go back and redo your steps. If you got hung up with your file system because your Windows shortcuts don't look the same, you may need to play with it a little bit. You might need to search for how to show your home directory in the quick access bar in order to see these files in Windows. But as I said before, it doesn't really matter if you can see it in Windows in the File Explorer. What we really need to be able to do is get here from our Anaconda prompt or our terminal prompt on these two OSs. So now finally I'm going to make clear that when we start to work with our SQLite session, we need to verify that we can see the file that we're about to open and that we spell it correctly. This is of absolute importance because it's very easy to get confused if you're not in the right place or if you misspell the name. Again, here too, you can see I've got session 2db in my current directory by doing ls, and on Windows it's dir. And when you're in the session 2 files directory and you're sure you're there, when you do an ls or dir, you should see this file sitting here, and we need to verify it's there before we can move forward with opening the file. And we'll explain that when we open it in the next video.